Don Rickles, the legendary comedian, made millions laugh for 60 years with his quick wit and hilarious insults. But for a long time, his family stayed quiet about what life was really like behind the scenes. Then in 2024, his daughter Mindy finally broke that silence. What she revealed shocked everyone who thought they knew the Mr. Warmth behind the insults. The mob threats he faced were very real. The family tragedies were much worse than anyone ever imagined. And the deep guilt he carried about his son's death nearly destroyed him. Today, we're going to uncover the dark secrets that Don Rickles took to his grave and explore why his family waited so long to tell the truth. Get ready, because the story of Don Rickles is far more complicated and emotional than you ever knew. Don Rickles was born on May 8, 1926, in a place called Jackson Heights, Queens, a busy part of New York City. His parents were immigrants from Jewish families who had come from other countries. His father, Max, came all the way from Lithuania, and his mother, Ada, was the daughter of Austrian Jews. Their home was always filled with exciting stories from the old world where they grew up. Life for them was hard in many ways, but it was also full of energy and love. They spoke Yiddish, a language many Jewish people spoke, at the dinner table and followed old Jewish traditions. Don grew up hearing many stories about how his family struggled, faced wars, and managed to survive tough times. Because of this, he learned early on how to find humor or funny moments, even in pain. That special way of looking at life would become the very heart of his comedy later on. When he went to Newtown High School, Don wasn't a great student. His grades were not good, but he really stood out in other ways. He became the president of the Dramatic Society, which was like a club for acting and plays. Teachers noticed that even if he didn't study much, he really shined when he was on stage. He would often make fun of his classmates and even his teachers right to their faces, but in a funny way. Everyone at school called him the Clown Prince because he was always making people laugh. He finished high school during World War II and got what he called a war diploma, which was meant to encourage young men to join the military. Even in a strict school, his wild and funny humor always broke through. When he turned 18, Don joined the Navy. He served from 1943 to 1946. During the war, he was stationed on a ship called the USS Cyrene, which was a support ship for smaller torpedo boats in the Pacific Ocean. The heat was incredibly hot, the work was very hard, and danger was always nearby. Don would joke that the crew was rotting from the humidity. It was so uncomfortable. But even in that misery, his comedy helped people deal with the tough times. His shipmates remembered how his jokes lifted their spirits and made them feel better. By the time he left the Navy, Don had learned a very important skill: how to turn fear into laughter. That ability became like a special weapon he used for the rest of his life in comedy. After coming home from the Navy, Don tried to do something more steady and normal. His father really wanted him to become an insurance salesman, a job that seemed safe and secure. So, Don put on a suit and gave it a try, but it just didn't work out. He couldn't make a single sale. His sharp, quick humor didn't fit with going door to door trying to sell insurance policies. People would often slam doors on him, and he hated it. That failure made him feel really down, but it also pushed him to find what he was truly meant to do. His mother, who always supported him, encouraged him to do what made him happy. That encouragement helped him break free from the usual jobs people took after the war. In 1948, Don took a big step and enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, a famous acting school. He trained alongside future big stars like Grace Kelly and Jason Robards. But acting in serious dramas wasn't his thing at all. When he tried to play serious roles, people in the audience would laugh, and not in a good way. Still, when he was allowed to make up his own lines or play funny characters, everything clicked. He realized that failing at serious drama was actually a good thing for him. That failure helped him discover a whole new kind of comedy that he was perfect for. The Academy gave him the chance to find his unique comedic voice. In the early 1950s, Don started performing in small resorts in the Catskill Mountains, a popular vacation spot. He needed money, and those little places were a good way to get work. Audiences that were very close to the stage and often liked to yell things at the performers. One night, while Don was performing, people started shouting at him in the middle of his act. Instead of ignoring them, Don quickly talked back. He started insulting them with fast, sharp jokes. The crowd suddenly roared with laughter. That was the moment everything changed for him. His harsh, direct style wasn't just tolerated, it was loved by the audience. From then on, he leaned into it. He didn't back down from hecklers. He welcomed them and made them a part of his show. That's also when a famous phrase he used, hockey puck, was born. In the rough nightclubs of New York and Miami, Don needed a harmless insult, something that would make people laugh but wouldn't make them angry enough to punch him. So, he started calling people hockey pucks. It didn't really make any sense, but it was funny, and people laughed. The phrase stuck with him. Years later, when he voiced Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story movies, they even included that famous line in the script. That one silly insult became a part of pop culture, all thanks to those wild early shows. From 1950 to 1970, Don performed almost nonstop. He played in all kinds of clubs, even places most people would avoid, like strip joints, rundown lounges, and even night spots run by the mob. Sometimes he did 3 shows a night, every single day of the week. The audiences were often rude, drunk, or even dangerous. But Don didn't quit. He used these tough experiences to make his comedy skills even sharper. He learned how to quickly shut down hecklers, and every insult he delivered in those years helped shape the act that would later fill huge theaters in Las Vegas and get him onto national TV. Those tough crowds helped him build his stage armor. There was one night in New Jersey that nearly went too far. Don was doing his usual routine when he saw a man and his wife in the crowd. He made a joke about her size, comparing her to a moose. What he didn't know was that the man was connected to the mob, a powerful criminal organization. The room went completely silent. After the show, Don was called backstage. He feared the worst, thinking he was in big trouble. But surprisingly, the man laughed and even bought him drinks. It was a risky moment, but stories like that became part of Don's legend. He was fearless, even when he probably shouldn't have been. Don Rickles had spent nearly 20 years trying to get noticed. He was already 32 years old when he got his first film role in Run Silent, Run Deep in 1958. That age might have been fine in real life, but in Hollywood, he was already behind the curve. Most actors his age were already well known. But Rickles didn't just get a background role. He found himself on screen with huge stars like Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster. He played a quartermaster on a submarine during World War II. It was a serious movie with no jokes or comedy, and Rickles pulled it off. He gave a performance that didn't feel like a nightclub act, but like someone who truly belonged on screen with legendary actors. It surprised audiences and changed his career path. He finally broke into the world of movies, a world he had only dreamed of while growing up in Queens. Things took a strange turn in the 1960s. Rickles found himself stuck in a series of movies that were all about sun, sand, and silly fun. Films like Muscle Beach Party and Bikini Beach seemed like harmless fun at first, easy money, but they nearly ruined his career. He played goofy adult characters while teenagers danced and surfed around him. Critics hated the films, and directors stopped seeing him as someone who could handle more serious or even smart comedic roles. His agent, who was married to Annette Funicello, one of the stars of these beach movies, kept putting him back in them. They were silly, and people laughed, but not in a good way. Even years later, Barbara Bush, the former First Lady, jokingly made fun of Rickles for those roles at a White House dinner. These roles stuck to him like glue. He made them funny, yes, but it almost cost him everything he had worked for. Just when it seemed like he'd be trapped in goofy parts forever, Rickles took a different path. In 1963, he appeared in a strange little science fiction film called X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes. Directed by Roger Corman and starring Ray Milland, it was a low-budget movie with big ideas. Rickles played a carnival barker, a person who tries to attract people to a show, trying to make money off a man who could see through everything. In this movie, he didn't crack jokes. He didn't play for laughs. He acted, and it worked really well. The film ended up being popular with sci-fi fans and gave Rickles a new kind of attention. For the first time, people saw that he could handle darker, more serious material. He wasn't just a funny guy in loud suits anymore. In 1967, Carl Reiner directed Enter Laughing, a comedy about a young man trying to become an actor. Rickles had a small part as a tough-talking acting coach named Harry Hamburger. He wasn't on screen for long, but when he was, people paid attention. His timing was perfect. His lines landed hard and made an impact. Critics said his scenes were some of the best in the film. This was his first real chance at comedy on the big screen, and he nailed it. He finally got to show movie audiences the same magic he had shown in nightclubs for years. The film didn't make him a household name, but it got him closer to becoming one. Then came Kelly's Heroes in 1970. That movie changed everything. The cast was full of huge stars: Clint Eastwood, Telly Savalas, Donald Sutherland. But Rickles held his own among them. He played a wisecracking, smart aleck supply sergeant named Crap Game, and he nearly stole the whole film. It was a war movie, but not a typical one. It had humor, action, and a unique attitude. Rickles' fast-talking, money-hungry character was a perfect fit. The movie became a hit and eventually a classic that many people still love. Suddenly, Rickles wasn't just a guest on talk shows or a comic in Las Vegas. He was a real Hollywood actor. Behind the scenes, one bold moment helped shape Rickles' entire career. It happened in Las Vegas at the Sands Hotel. Frank Sinatra, who was the most powerful and famous entertainer in America, was having dinner. Rickles, who was still mostly unknown, was also there on a date. Wanting to impress the woman he was with, he bravely asked Sinatra for a favor: to walk over to their table and act like they were old friends. Sinatra agreed, but when he approached the table, Rickles didn't thank him. Instead, he waved him off and said, "Frank, not now. Can't you see I'm with somebody?" Sinatra could have ruined his career for that disrespectful comment, but instead he laughed. From that night on, Sinatra took Rickles under his wing and became his protector. Soon after, Sinatra gave him a nickname, Bullethead. It wasn't an insult. It meant Rickles had earned a special spot in Sinatra's powerful world. Sinatra gave him that name after another moment on stage in 1957. Rickles saw Sinatra in the audience and, always pushing the limits, said, "Make yourself at home, Frank. Hit somebody." Everyone in the room froze, terrified, but Sinatra laughed again. He liked Rickles' guts and his fearlessness. After that, nobody dared to mess with Don Rickles. He could say anything, even to the most dangerous people, and get away with it. Sinatra protected him like family. But protection didn't always mean safety. On April 6, 1972, Rickles was performing at the famous Copacabana nightclub in New York. Mob boss Joey Gallo was in the audience. Gallo had just gotten out of prison and was trying to rebuild his power. Rickles, ever the insult comic, made fun of him from the stage, calling out his time in prison, his reputation, everything he could think of. Friends backstage panicked. They begged him to stop, fearing what Gallo might do. But Rickles kept going, fearless. Gallo didn't react with anger, he even laughed. Still, the danger was very real. Later that night, Gallo invited Rickles to a birthday dinner at Umberto's Clam House. Rickles said no. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he just had a bad feeling. Hours later, the restaurant was attacked in a mob hit. Gunmen burst in and fired more than 20 bullets. Gallo died in front of his family. If Rickles had accepted that dinner invite, he would have been there. He could have been killed. That one decision, skipping a late-night meal, might have saved his life. Even as Rickles got older, he kept performing. In 1985, he stood on stage at Ronald Reagan's second presidential inauguration. He had always been a Democrat, but he went because Sinatra personally asked him to. That night, Rickles made fun of presidents, cabinet members, and celebrities just like he always had. Nothing was off limits. He didn't care about politics. He cared about making the crowd laugh. And the crowd loved him for it. Don Rickles didn't just appear on Johnny Carson's Famous Tonight show. He owned the stage in a way that truly changed late-night television. From the late 1960s through the 1980s, he showed up more than 100 times. Sometimes he was scheduled to appear, but other times he just dropped in unannounced and completely took over the show. Carson loved it. He didn't just tolerate Rickles' sharp jokes, he welcomed them and played along. What could have ended most careers actually made Rickles a huge star. Carson even let him host the show once, while Carson himself played the guest. It worked so well because the two men had something rare, perfect chemistry. Carson was calm and cool, while Rickles was loud and fast. Their different personalities made every visit feel fresh and exciting. The audience knew what was coming when they heard the bullfight music, Rickles' entrance song. He would walk out ready to fire off his insults. Those moments helped make The Tonight Show a must-watch for more than a decade. In 1976, Rickles was filling in as host when something small turned into something unforgettable. He accidentally broke Johnny Carson's wooden cigarette box. That box had been sitting on Carson's desk since 1967 and was a famous part of the show. When Carson came back the next night, he was confused about his missing box. Then he heard Rickles had done it, so he grabbed a camera crew and walked straight over to the nearby set of Rickles' new show. Carson barged in while they were filming and confronted him right there, live on TV. It was raw and unscripted, completely real. Rickles joked his way through it, pretending to be innocent. Carson pretended to be furious, but you could tell he was having fun. The moment became one of the most replayed clips in talk show history. It wasn't just funny, it was something new and groundbreaking. It blurred the line between different TV shows and made the host part of a story in a way viewers had never seen before. Rickles was great at live shows and variety programs, but sitcoms were a different story for him. In 1968, he got his own variety show, The Don Rickles Show, but it didn't last very long. In 1972, he tried again with a sitcom, also called The Don Rickles Show, but with a new format. This time, he played an advertising executive in a scripted sitcom, but it only lasted 13 episodes. Rickles just couldn't shine in a controlled, scripted setup. His humor needed freedom to be spontaneous. The script slowed him down, and audiences and critics noticed. The unique spark that made Rickles special didn't work inside the strict rules of a sitcom. But those failures showed something important. Some performers aren't made for sitcoms. They're at their best when they can truly be themselves and let their unique personality take over. That lesson shaped how Rickles was used in later TV shows. Then came CPO Sharky. It aired from late 1976 to spring 1978 and finally gave Rickles a TV home where he could truly thrive. The show put him in a Navy setting, just like his real-life service in World War II. He played Chief Petty Officer Otto Sharkey, a man who barked insults at his crew but actually cared deeply about them. The cast was diverse, with characters from different ethnic backgrounds. Rickles poked fun at all of them, but it was done with a strange kind of warmth and affection. The jokes were edgy for the time, especially in episodes like the one about punk rock, but it worked. Rickles had room to be himself. He wasn't boxed in by typical sitcom structure. The show ran for 37 episodes. It wasn't a massive hit, but it proved that with the right setup, Rickles could successfully lead a TV series. Between 1973 and 1984, Rickles found another perfect fit for his unique style, the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts. He didn't just take part in these, he completely dominated them. The idea was simple. Celebrities would get roasted with funny, often harsh jokes by their friends. But Rickles raised the bar. He was fast, sharp, and fearless. Everyone from legendary comedian Bob Hope to former President Ronald Reagan sat on that stage, waiting for their turn. And when Rickles spoke, they listened, sometimes nervously, because no one knew what he would say. One of the most famous roasts was of Frank Sinatra himself. Rickles went incredibly hard, even with powerful mafia figures in the crowd. People held their breath, fearing how Sinatra would react, until Sinatra finally laughed. That laugh gave everyone else permission to laugh, too. In 1976, Rickles even roasted Dean Martin himself, the host of the show, in front of legends like Orson Welles and John Wayne. For 10 years, these specials beat many scripted shows in ratings. Rickles became the one everyone wanted to be roasted by. Getting insulted by him meant you had truly made it in Hollywood. Don Rickles spent years making the world laugh with his sharp tongue and fearless comedy. But off stage, his story was filled with quiet love, heartbreaking loss, and moments that few people ever saw. In 1965, everything changed for him when he met Barbara Sklar. He was 38 years old and still searching for something real in his life. She wasn't impressed by his fame or his insults. She didn't laugh at his jokes easily, and that caught him off guard. It also pulled him in. She wasn't like the others he had met. She was calm, grounded, and incredibly honest. That honesty gave him the space to drop his comedic act and finally be himself. They got married on March 14, 1965. For the next 52 years, they were almost never apart. Barbara stood by him through all the chaos of show business and raised 2 children with him, Mindy and Larry. Don often joked about her on stage, but in private, he called her the anchor of his life, the person who kept him steady. She followed him on tour, rearranged her schedule for dinners, and supported him through everything. After he died in 2017, she even took over his Twitter account to keep his voice alive for his fans. But their beautiful love story also had deep pain. Their son, Larry, was born on May 12, 1970. He followed his father's path into entertainment and produced the HBO documentary Mr. Warmth, the Don Rickles Project, which won an Emmy Award in 2007. People thought he was just getting started in his career. Then, on December 3, 2011, Larry died suddenly from pneumonia. He was only 41 years old. Don and Barbara were absolutely devastated. Friends said they were truly broken by the loss. For Don, who was already in his 80s, it was a wound that never fully healed. 10 years later, the story turned even more tragic. On March 14, 2021, Barbara passed away at age 84 after battling non-Hodgkin lymphoma, a type of cancer. It was the exact date of their wedding anniversary. They had been married 56 years to the day. Friends and fans were stunned by the timing. It felt like the final note in a love story that had seen both great joy and immense heartbreak. Barbara wasn't just Don Rickles' wife. She was his partner in every part of life, and their bond stood the test of time in a way few Hollywood couples ever manage. There was another side of Don that only came out in front of the camera, but not in his usual comedic setting. When he was cast in Casino in 1995, people were very surprised. The film was a serious, violent crime drama directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro, Sharon Stone, and Joe Pesci. Rickles was known as a comic, not a dramatic actor. Scorsese warned him before filming started that De Niro was intense and very serious about his acting process, staying in character. Rickles didn't care. He joked through it anyway. De Niro was famous for never breaking character. He stayed silent and focused even between takes. But Rickles didn't follow those rules. In one scene, De Niro was quietly smoking a cigarette, building tension. Rickles couldn't help himself. He suddenly shouted, "Will you say the goddamn lines? It's almost 6 o'clock. I've got to go home." The crew burst into laughter. Even De Niro cracked a smile. And that wasn't the only time. Rickles roasted him during another take, calling out, "Get somebody that can talk for Christ's sake. This guy's making $8 billion. I'm making 2 and a coffee." It was classic Rickles, cutting through the seriousness with a line that made the whole set explode with laughter. The most surprising moment came when he actually made De Niro fall to the floor laughing. Even Scorsese couldn't hold back his own laughter. Rickles' perfect timing and serious, straight-faced delivery broke down the wall of seriousness and reminded everyone how powerful humor could be, even on a tense film set. He mocked mobster lines and still delivered a performance that earned real respect. In Casino, he played Billy Sherbert, the loyal head of casino security. The role wasn't flashy, but Rickles brought a quiet strength to it. It showed he could do more than just make people laugh. He could act with restraint and power when it counted. In 1995, something happened that nobody saw coming. Don Rickles, a comedian known for roasting celebrities with brutal honesty, suddenly became the voice of a children's toy. At 69, Rickles was asked to play Mr. Potato Head in a brand new animated film called Toy Story. It was Pixar's first full-length movie, and no one knew if the film would even be successful. Rickles had never voiced a cartoon character before. He was used to live crowds and smoky clubs, not quiet recording studios. John Lasseter, the director, showed up at Rickles' house with a Mr. Potato Head toy in his hand. As Rickles opened the door, the toy's pieces accidentally fell off. Lasseter joked that Rickles' head looked like a potato too. That moment broke the ice and made Rickles feel comfortable. He agreed to try it out. At first it felt strange, but soon he was bringing his sharp humor to the character in ways no one else could have. Suddenly, millions of kids were laughing at lines from a man who had once roasted Frank Sinatra, and they had no idea who he was. What surprised Rickles even more was how his own grandchildren reacted. Ethan and Harrison Mann had grown up with Pixar movies. They had seen their grandfather perform in person. They knew he had starred in films with Joe Pesci and had been on TV since the 1950s, but none of that mattered to them as much as Mr. Potato Head. That character was their favorite. According to his daughter, Mindy, that was the first time they saw their grandfather as something bigger than life, something truly special. They went to the Toy Story 3 premiere in 2010, and it became one of the family's proudest memories. Mindy said the role didn't just make her father famous again, it made him unforgettable to a new generation. In their house, he wasn't just Don Rickles, he was Pop Pop, the sarcastic potato. What started as a single film turned into a long-term part of Rickles' life. He came back for Toy Story 2 in 1999, then Toy Story 3 in 2010. Even after he passed away in 2017, he somehow appeared again in Toy Story 4, which came out in 2019. Along the way, he voiced the character for Disney theme parks, holiday specials, and video games. For one ride alone, he recorded over 750 different lines. He spent more than 35 hours in the recording booth, pushing his voice so hard he couldn't speak afterward. But he kept coming back. Even when his health was failing, he said yes every time they called him. He didn't see it as work. He loved that little toy and the joy it brought. Rickles didn't change his style for the role. He would read the lines, then just start making up his own jokes on the spot, improvising. His jokes were fast and raw, just like in his stand-up days. Pixar loved it. They shaped the animation to match his voice perfectly. Most of Mr. Potato Head's best moments weren't written in the script. They came from Rickles, just being himself. Behind the scenes, the man who insulted everyone on stage turned out to be kind and humble in person. Animators were shocked by how sweet he was. The character wasn't just funny, he felt real and lovable. When Rickles passed away in April 2017, fans and the Pixar team were devastated. He hadn't recorded anything for Toy Story 4 yet, but his family didn't want his character to disappear. So Pixar sound engineers dug through decades of recordings, old takes, theme park clips, even video game audio. They carefully pieced together enough dialogue to keep Mr. Potato Head alive in the final movie. In Toy Story 4, he doesn't speak much, but every word you hear is genuinely Rickles. The movie ends with a touching tribute to him. It was a quiet way to say goodbye, but a powerful one. Even as his health declined, Rickles refused to slow down. In 2017, the same year he died, he was still planning shows. He had one scheduled with Regis Philbin in May, just 1 month after he passed. He even tried to push the dates to later in the year, hoping he'd recover in time. He told reporters in February that he felt good at 90 and had no plans to stop performing. Behind the scenes, he was also working on a TV project for AARP, an organization for older Americans. He simply never gave up. He died at home in Century City, surrounded by his loving family, just weeks before his 91st birthday. His wife Barbara had been by his side for 52 years. He had lost his only son, Larry, back in 2011, a profound sorrow he carried. And after his death, the family asked that donations be made to the Larry Rickles Endowment Fund at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, keeping his son's memory alive through helping others. The tributes after his death revealed something most people didn't expect. Jerry Seinfeld called him comedy's Mount Rushmore, meaning he was one of the greatest comedians of all time. Bob Newhart, his closest friend, said he was the kindest man he had ever known. Jimmy Kimmel cried while speaking about him live on air, showing how much he was loved. The man known for tearing people apart with jokes turned out to have a huge heart. Friends and fans said he was generous, caring, and deeply loyal. He donated to countless good causes and quietly helped other comics behind the scenes when they were struggling. He gave time and money to Jewish charities and helped raise money for children's hospitals. He made fun of everyone, but he also helped almost everyone he knew. His daughter, Mindy Rickles, has worked hard to make sure people remember who he really was. She has helped create exhibits, post old clips, and tell the stories behind the jokes. She says he was more than just a comic. He was a loving father, a devoted grandfather, and someone who cared deeply about people. She's made it her mission to share that warm, caring side of him with the world. Because even though Don Rickles will always be remembered as the funniest insult comic in history, the truth is his biggest legacy might be how much he cared about everyone, even the people he playfully insulted. What do you think about Don Rickles' incredible life and the emotional truths his family has finally shared? Did this change your view of the insult comic legend? Let us know in the comments below. If you were touched by his story, please give this video a big thumbs up, share it with anyone who loves comedy or a good untold story, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the lives of your favorite stars. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep telling these powerful stories.